The Egyptian Sphinx is one of the most famous masterpieces of ancient sculpture in the world. But how much do you really know about it? Does anyone truly understand the Sphinx? The secrets hidden behind this monument go far beyond what most people could ever imagine. You might not even realize just how much you don't know about the Sphinx until you've finished watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell button so you can be part of our notification squad. Let's start with a theory that many people have proposed but no one has ever been able to prove, that beneath the Sphinx there exists a secret door or tunnel leading to underground chambers. This is the personal theory of historian Matt Simpson, who believes that there are tunnels beneath the Sphinx's paws connecting it to the pyramids of Giza. Simpson insists that during a French archaeological excavation in 1837, a secret doorway was discovered, a discovery that was even witnessed by Colonel Howard Vyse. However, both the excavation team and Vyse were somehow compelled to keep this discovery a secret. Simpson's theory was once dismissed as far-fetched, until secret tunnels beneath the Giza Plateau were actually discovered in 2019. If there really are tunnels down there, then they must lead somewhere. A connection between the pyramids and the Sphinx would make a lot more sense if we assume that the internal cavities inside the Sphinx once had some kind of purpose. The question of why the French archaeologist and Colonel Vyse would have been ordered to keep such a discovery secret remains unanswered to this day. If it truly was a find of enormous historical significance, then why the silence? Here's a less controversial fact about the Sphinx. It was carved from a single piece of stone. The sheer size of the monument makes this hard to believe, but it's true. This massive structure was carved from a single block of limestone, gradually chipped away by hundreds of craftsmen until the 240-foot-long, 66-foot-tall figure we see today took shape. Actually, that isn't the whole story either, because the Sphinx as it exists now has been repaired and partially restored with additional limestone blocks, so its original shape may have been a bit different. Still, even with modern technology, a construction or art project on this scale would be a huge challenge. The fact that the ancient Egyptians achieved this with nothing more than primitive hand tools is honestly almost impossible to believe. We don't even know the name of the person who designed or oversaw the construction of the Sphinx, because unlike so many other monuments and major works in Egypt, the Sphinx bears no inscription whatsoever to identify its creator. It's no wonder some people have claimed that it was built by aliens. And once again, we find ourselves venturing into controversial territory with the next theory, the idea that the Sphinx may actually have been created to represent Anubis, the dog-headed god. The traditional view among archaeologists and historians is that the original face of the Sphinx was modeled after the pharaoh Khafre, but plenty of people disagree with that assessment. Some have suggested that the Sphinx once took the form of a lion to represent the constellation Leo, but lions never held any special place in ancient Egyptian culture. Dogs, on the other hand, were significant because of Anubis. If you look again at the Sphinx's shape, with its flat back and the position of its legs, does it perhaps remind you more of a dog? There's another important detail. Anubis was believed to be the guardian of the necropolis. If, as some believe, the Giza Plateau was once a vast cemetery, then erecting a giant statue of Anubis to watch over the site would make perfect sense. Could the face of the Sphinx have been dramatically altered from its original appearance? It's certainly possible. As mentioned before, the Sphinx bears no inscription recording its construction, making the question of who created it even more mysterious. If we set aside the Anubis theory and accept that the Sphinx represents King Khafre, then it would have to have been built sometime between 2558 and 2532 BCE. But there's no solid evidence to back up that theory, and to this day there is no consensus about who built it, why it was built, or what its original purpose was. That's a troubling gap in our knowledge about one of the largest sculptures on Earth. We don't even know its original name, because strangely enough it does not appear in any of the surviving texts from the Old Kingdom of Egypt. The Sphinx was first called Horemakhet during the New Kingdom, but many believe that wasn't even its original name. The word Sphinx itself only appeared about 2,000 years ago. The absence of any record about the construction of the Sphinx, as well as its original name, from any civilization in history is puzzling, and it makes us wonder whether such documents might have once existed and were later destroyed. If that's the case, then for what reason? There's also a question hiding in plain sight that few people ever notice. What happened to the nose of the Sphinx? The most popular theory is that the nose was broken off by the army of the French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte during a battle near Giza when France invaded Egypt in 1798. That version even appears in some history books. The problem is, there's no direct evidence for it. No eyewitness accounts, and almost no chance that it actually happened the way those books describe. In fact, all the evidence points in another direction. According to the Arab historian al-Makrizi, the nose of the Sphinx has been missing since at least the 15th century, and perhaps even earlier. Al-Makrizi claimed that a Fatimid sheikh named Muhammad Saim al-Darar was responsible for destroying the nose, but there's no definitive proof for that claim either. The most controversial theory suggests that the nose was deliberately destroyed by Europeans when they arrived in Egypt in order to conceal the fact that the original nose had distinctly African features, something that, if acknowledged, would prove that the ancient Egyptians were black. Another theory holds that the nose of the Sphinx was washed away by water erosion, but that raises another issue. The evidence of water erosion on the Sphinx's surface has become increasingly clear, and analyzing these marks could actually prove that the Sphinx is far older than we currently believe. According to geologist Robert Schoch, the erosion marks on the body of the Sphinx could only have formed over thousands of years and would have required frequent rainfall. This region of Egypt hasn't seen regular sustained rain for more than 7,000 years, and based on Schoch's estimates, the Sphinx could be as much as 12,000 years old. If that were ever proven, it would completely upend everything we thought we knew about Egyptian history. It should be noted, however, that many of Schoch's peers strongly disagree with him and regard him as a fringe scholar. Still, the undeniable presence of water erosion on the monument continues to raise difficult questions, ones that mainstream theories have yet to answer. There's another strange detail. In the 18th century, the Sphinx was completely invisible to the naked eye. This fact alone makes the theory that Napoleon's troops broke the Sphinx's nose impossible, since he wouldn't even have been able to see it. Up until 1798, the Sphinx was buried entirely beneath the sands of Egypt. It was only when the top of its head started to emerge after shifts in the sand that people became aware of its existence. And it wasn't until the 1920s that French engineer Émile Barrès began the excavation project. The work took him a full 10 years, and it wasn't until 1936 that the modern world was able to lay eyes on the Sphinx in its entirety for the first time. In the 150 years prior, several notable figures like the Italian explorer Giovanni Caviglia and the French archaeologist Auguste Mariette had attempted to excavate the monument, but both had to abandon their efforts, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the task. There's simply no way the Sphinx could have become so deeply buried by accident. Believing that would be like imagining the sand might someday rise up and swallow the pyramids themselves. Clearly, the Sphinx was deliberately concealed. We don't know who did it or why. Earlier, we mentioned the possibility that the Sphinx once had a beard. In reality, that's not just a possibility, it's a confirmed fact. We know this because part of the Sphinx's beard is currently held in the collection of the British Museum. It's just one of many Egyptian artifacts housed at the British Museum. Artifacts that, to be fair, probably shouldn't be there in the first place. According to the official account, the broken beard was discovered in several pieces between the Sphinx's front paws in the 19th century. But that can't be right, as we've already pointed out that the front paws of the Sphinx were still buried in sand until the 1930s, although there are suggestions that Caviglia might have dug as far as the paws before abandoning his excavation. It's both surprising and frustrating that the modern history of the Sphinx is as full of gaps as its ancient past. Nevertheless, the beard is real, and there's currently a campaign in Egypt to restore and reattach the beard to the monument's chin. Perhaps the biggest takeaway is that we have no real way of knowing exactly how old the Sphinx is, aside from a general sense that it's definitely older than the pyramids it watches over, and may, in fact, predate them by thousands of years. It's possible the Sphinx was built for Khafra around 2600 BCE, or it might already have been ancient by the time Khafra was born. The suspicious erosion on the limestone certainly raises questions, but if we start talking about an age greater than 9,000 years, we'd have to rule out the idea that it was built by the ancient Egyptians, or at least not by the ancient Egyptians as we currently understand them. It could be the work of an advanced civilization that existed long before the Egyptians and laid the foundations for their culture. That's not to say aliens were involved, something that fringe theorists love to suggest about Egypt, but it does make us wonder who might have lived on this land before them. Perhaps the greatest mystery of all is what the Sphinx was carved for and what its true purpose really was. Who among us hasn't seen photos of this famous monument? But how many have ever stopped to wonder why it exists at all? A creation of this scale would surely have set a precedent, so why didn't any of Khafra's successors build a Sphinx of their own? And if the statue was originally conceived as a colossal representation of Anubis, then why was it ever changed? Why is there no record of its construction? Did it once serve some higher purpose? Or was it simply a massive monument to the power and influence of a particular pharaoh at a specific moment in time? These are all questions that remain unanswered. We hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our future videos. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.